Welcome to the start of our journey around Lake Washington. I'm currently at Zoka Coffee near the University Village. This is a coffee shop that's just adjacent to the Burke-Gilman bicycle trail. On weekend mornings, you'll often find big groups of cyclists here filling up on coffee before heading out to ride on the Burke-Gilman. That's where we're going to start our trip around the lake, riding on the Burke-Gilman. This is the very beginning of our circumference of Lake Washington. We're going to be traveling counterclockwise around the lake for a 50-mile journey. This is one of my favorite rides. I ride it multiple times every summer, and I want to share it with you. The Burke-Gilman Trail is a 20-mile long former railroad line that got converted into a multi-use trail that is a trail for bicycles and pedestrians. It's paved for its whole length, and it starts in Seattle and stretches north all the way to the very north end of Lake Washington in Bothell. We're actually going to ride it in a couple segments on our trip around Lake Washington. Our first destination is going to be the Rainier Vista on the University of Washington campus. Right next to the Burke-Gilman Trail is a man-made waterfall. It's the steam plant for the University of Washington. The waterfalls are used for cooling the plant. I've arrived at the University of Washington's campus. Behind the fountain is what is known as Rainier Vista. It's a park on the university grounds, and it perfectly lines up Mount Rainier, so there's a stunning view of the mountain, bracketed by the trees on either side. We are close to the end of riding on paved, dedicated pedestrian and bike trail for a while. From here, we're going to cross a bridge across a busy street over to the University of Washington's Husky Stadium. Then we're going to cross the Montlake Bridge and Old Drawbridge. And then after that, we're going to be on city roads for a while until we get to the southern end of Lake Washington. You may have noticed there's a lot of construction going on the 520 highway. So the route I'm taking to the Arboretum is actually the detour route. So depending on when you're watching this video, the route might be different. This is true of the whole Lake Washington loop in general too. There's a number of places where there's construction going on and new segments of the trail being added. So depending when you're watching this video, you might have a slightly different route to take. Probably better. I've arrived in the Washington Park Arboretum. This is a large park and botanic gardens south of the University of Washington. It's also on the Lake Washington Loop. The Lake Washington Boulevard runs right through the middle of the park. I'm currently standing on the Wilcox Bridge, also known as the Arboretum Aqueduct. From here, we're going to stay on Lake Washington Boulevard, cross the busy street Madison, then head downhill towards the water in the Lachey neighborhood. There's no shoulder on the road through the Arboretum. So if you're not comfortable riding in traffic, then there is a trail to the side that parallels the road, Lake Washington Boulevard, that you can take all the way through the Arboretum. The downhill section to Lachey, unfortunately there is no shoulder and no alternate trail. So if you're taking the Lake Washington Boulevard, you need to be comfortable being close to cars. I've arrived in the Lachey neighborhood. There's a somewhat confusing intersection here. Most of the way when we're heading south on the west side of Lake Washington, we're going to be on Lake Washington Boulevard. Except here, there's a fork, and Lake Washington Boulevard turns right and goes uphill. We don't want to go that way. That's the way you're going to go if you're going to cross the I-90 bridge. We actually want to go left and stay straight and follow the water on Lakeside Avenue. Eventually it'll turn into Lake Washington Boulevard again, but that's a little further down the road. I'm passing under the I-90 bridge right now. I am currently at Mount Beaker Beach Park on Lake Washington Boulevard. Behind me, Lake Washington Boulevard is closed for 3 miles. On select weekends every summer, the city closes Lake Washington Boulevard to cars, but opens it to pedestrians and bicycles. This is one of those weekends. I am currently approaching Seward Park. To my left is Andrews Bay, which is part of the park. Any sunny summer day, you'll find the bay is full of boats, and today is no exception. If you have a stand-up paddleboard, this is a good place to come for a recovery day paddle after a long weekend of riding. I've arrived at Seward Park. The park sits on the Bailey Peninsula, a large wooded area that sticks out into Lake Washington. There is a paved bike and pedestrian path that goes all the way around the peninsula. We'll do a quick tour of that, and then we'll start heading south towards Rainier Avenue and the Renton Airport. was Seward Park. Now we're resuming our journey southwards towards Renton. We'll be on city streets for a while. There's two sections of the Lake Washington loop I consider a little boring. This is the first one, just because it's a lot of streets without a lot of interesting scenery. We'll be on Seward Park Avenue for a while, then we're going to turn left onto Rainier until we get to the Renton Airport. Turning left onto Rainier Avenue. I've arrived at the Renton Airport. This is the very southern end of Lake Washington. This is also one of my favorite parts of the ride. In my previous career, before I got into software, I was an engineer at the aerospace company Boeing. The Boeing Renton plant is where they build the 737 passenger jets. They also have 737s parked at the Renton Airport in various stages of completion. So when you ride around the airport, you'll be able to gawk at all the airplanes. Also, if you're an aviation geek, there's a lot of private pilots that fly out of this airport, so you can watch planes taking off and landing from here. So as I mentioned, there are a lot of 737s parked here, getting some finishing touches applied to them. Getting my pilot's license is on my bucket list, so I love watching the planes coming in for a landing here. Our next stop is the Cedar River Trail. We'll only be on that for a short while, but we will cross the bridge over the Cedar River. Then we'll pass by the Boeing plant in Renton, and then we'll start heading north on the east side of Lake Washington. To my left is Boeing's aircraft plant in Renton. It's in a really amazing location. It's right on the water in the very south end of Lake Washington. This is where they build the 737 passenger jets. The Boeing facilities are always pretty amazing. They used to offer tours of the plants before the pandemic, but they haven't yet resumed them. But if they ever do, I recommend doing one of the tours. Our next stop is the Eastside Rail Corridor, also known as Eastrail. We've arrived at the Eastside Rail Corridor Trail. The beginning of this trail, though, is a little south of here. Let's go investigate. End of the line. I am at the very southern end of the Eastside Rail Corridor Trail. also known as Eastrail. This is a 42-mile long railroad line which is going to be eventually converted into a multi-use trail, that is, for pedestrians and bicyclists. But as of now, only 4 miles has been completed. When it's done, it'll stretch from Renton behind me, north through Bellevue, through Woodinville, and end up all the way in Sammamish. Some people really want it to be open now. I keep seeing people going by me and then realizing the trail dead ends. But someday it'll be done, and depending when you are watching this video, you might be able to get to ride the whole thing. Okay, let's head north instead of trying to go south and see what the completed section of the trail looks like. And we're back. Let's go ride the trail. So to my left is the Seahawks training camp. It's situated right between Lake Washington and the Eastside Trail. I've heard the players, some of them even arrive by yacht from the water. There's a dock. Sounds like a tough life. So that first section of the Eastrail is gravel. I'm riding a cyclocross bike, so I was fine with that. But if you're riding a road bike and you don't want to ride on gravel, the road does parallel the Eastrail for that gravel section. And then once you get past the gravel, you can hop on this paved part of the trail. Well, that's it for this section of the Eastrail. Depending on when you're watching this video, this may be done and you can keep going. After this, we're heading to Bellevue, but we're just going to be passing through Bellevue. Our real destination is the Highway 520 Trail, and then after that, Redmond and the Sammamish River Trail. If you're riding around Lake Washington in late summer, keep your eyes open for blackberry bushes, like the ones behind me. They're literally everywhere, and they're usually full of ripe berries, so you can stop and have a quick snack. Passing under the eastern end of the I-90 bridge. Just south of downtown Bellevue is the Mercer Slough Environmental Learning Center. It's connected to the Mercer Slough Protected Wetlands. If you have elementary school age kids, they've got some great programs here for them. For cyclists, they have bathrooms and a drinking fountain. When I'm riding by in the evening, bathrooms are usually closed, but the drinking fountains are still working, so it's always a place I stop to fill up my water bottle. good way through Bellevue if you're a cyclist that avoids the city streets. So we're gonna have to ride on some busy streets for a little bit. We're gonna cross I-405 on 8th, and then we're gonna take a left onto 116th and head north. The big landmark there is the Whole Foods. You can't miss it. From there, we'll just follow 116th almost all the way to the start of the Highway 520 trail. Okay, we just made it through a couple gnarly intersections. Now we're going to be heading north on 116th Avenue Northeast for a couple miles until we get to the Highway 520 trail. I've arrived at the eastbound section of the Highway 520 trail. This is a paved, multi-use trail designed for both bicycles and pedestrians. It stretches from here and parallel all the way to Redmond and follows the Highway 520 the whole way. In Redmond, it links up with the Sammamish River Trail. The westbound section of the Highway 520 trail is the one that goes across Lake Washington and ends in Seattle. We're currently approaching the heart of the Microsoft campus in Redmond. More important to us as cyclists though, we're passing the still under construction Overlake Village Light Rail Station. That pedestrian bridge to my right is still under construction, but when it's completed and the light rail is running, you could combine riding around Lake Washington with taking light rail because you can put your bike on the light rail. Approaching the end of the 520 trail in Redmond. From there, we'll continue on the Lake Washington Loop by hopping on the Sammamish River Trail. Before we get there though, there's a really steep, fun, fast descent into Redmond. We're just about to hit it, so hold on to your brakes. I've arrived in Redmond, and more importantly, at the beginning of the Sammamish River Trail. The trail follows the Sammamish River for 10 miles. It's a paved multi-use trail. That is, a trail that can be used by both bicycles and pedestrians. And it goes from Redmond all the way to Bothell. It doesn't actually end in Bothell. There it just turns into the Burke-Gilman Trail, but it's basically the same trail, and it goes for another 20 miles from there to Seattle for a grand total of 30 miles from here. So I've just arrived at the Wilmot Gateway Park in Woodinville. This is a really nice place for a stop. We've got bathrooms and drinking fountains, and most importantly, they have a bottle filling station. So you can get cold but cool water for your water bottle on a hot day. I'm currently passing under the interchanges for the Interstate 405 and Highway 522. From this angle, I always think these massive columns from the freeway overpasses look like the ruins of some lost ancient Cyclopean civilization. Very peaceful weekend afternoon on the Sammamish River Trail. Not just people on the trail, but a lot of paddlers in the water too. We've arrived at the end of the Sammamish River Trail. This is also the beginning of the Burke-Gilman Trail. They're really the same trail, they just run into each other. And it's the same thing. It's a former rail trail that's been paved over and converted to use for bicycles and pedestrians. It's right next to Blythe Park, and there's 2 bridges over the Sammamish River here. From here, we'll be on Burke-Gilman for the rest of the ride back to Seattle. Is Kenmore's 192 Brewing. It's a brew pub literally right next to the Burke-Gilman Trail. This could be a great place to begin or end your trip around Lake Washington. I've arrived at Log Boom Park at the north end of Lake Washington. It was recently renovated after being closed for a couple years, but now it offers bathrooms and drinking fountains, and in the summer they even have paddleboard and kayak rentals here. This is a good place to take a break before we push to Sandpoint. The next section of the trail is a little boring, but at least you're on the Burke-Gilman the whole way, so you're not riding on city streets. But it's kind of residential and there's not a lot of views. We're getting close to the end of our journey around Lake Washington. But before we get there, we're going to take a quick little pit stop in Sandpoint. This is also the location of Magnuson Park. There's a great little brew pub down by the lakeside there. To my right, here in Sandpoint, is the headquarters of the Mountaineers. It's the largest outdoor sports club in Washington State. If you're interested in climbing, mountaineering, this is a great place to take some lessons. They even have outdoor climbing walls here that the public can use. To my left is the Cascade Bicycle Club here in Sandpoint. Right next to that is the Magnuson Brewery. It's a great little brew pub right on the lakeside. This will be another option for a place to begin or end your journey around Lake Washington. Well, that's it for Sandpoint and Magnuson Park. Now we're headed back to the University District in Seattle, where we started from. that's it. We're back to where we started from. Thank you for joining me on this journey around Lake Washington. I really enjoyed being able to share one of my favorite rides with you.